Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov, welcome. Great to have you all. Thank you for joining us. I hope that this morning you're doing well, you're feeling well. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless everybody with good health and nachas. It's an honor to spend this morning together with you, and we have some incredible guests who are joining us. So thank you to all of our guests. A special thank you to our amazing office staff who have been behind the scenes, Yomim V'Layla, ensuring that all of the Kollel learning has not just continued to exist, but has really thrived. And this week, B'Siyata D'Shmaya, we have 4 new Shir series beginning, and we're excited to welcome all of you this morning. I also want to add one introductory note from our amazing office staff and our lay leadership, and that is that this Tuesday, Habalin Latova, is known as Giving Tuesday. So I'm going to give this little shout out here for those who can see it. You know, as we think about how to support our local Mostos, whether it's the COVID-19 Emergency United Fund that we have here in Chicago, or the ARC, or the Chesed Fund, or all the other important Mostos, I would say please remember the Kollel as we are continuing to provide opportunities for our community of learning, which has been just incredibly explosive over the last month and a half in terms of participants of men and women and young people and children all across the board through these virtual mediums. But we also want to take a moment to share with you just a little reflection from this year. Just a few weeks ago, just before we had our pandemic breakout, we had our opportunity to share our annual dinner, which was, of course, our primary fundraiser and some of our other events. So this will be just a quick momentary break to enjoy a little reflection from this year. Just a few weeks ago, just before we had our pandemic breakout, we had our opportunity to share our annual dinner, which was, of course, our primary fundraiser and some of our other events. So this will be just a quick momentary break to enjoy a little reflection from this year. And so just a few weeks ago, just before we had our pandemic breakout, we had our opportunity to share our annual dinner, which was, of course, our primary fundraiser and some of our other events. So this will be just a quick momentary break to enjoy a little reflection from this year. And so just a few weeks ago, just before we had our pandemic breakout, we had our opportunity to share our annual dinner, which was, of course, our primary fundraiser and some of our other events. So this will be just a quick momentary break. Team for putting this together. And again, this is just our little reminder. Please join us this Tuesday on Giving Tuesday. We are delighted for our first guest to welcome this morning, Dr. Miriam Gutmann. Dr. Guttman, can you see us and hear us? Shalom Aleichem. Wonderful. Hang on one second. Let me just switch up my audio here. You so well. Dr. Guttman, can you speak again? I'm just still on mute. Hold on 1 second. Let me unmute you here. Okay, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you. How are you?
I am fine. I'm really well this morning. Thank you for allowing me to do this.
Thanks for taking the time and joining us. First of all, how's your mishpacha? How's everybody in Lincolnwood, West Rogers Park family?
Baruch Hashem, everyone is doing well. Thank God.
Awesome.
All good.
So,
In town and out of
okay, everybody should be well. For those who don't know, Dr. Guttman is a practicing psychiatrist here in the Chicagoland area. She works with lots of different kinds of challenges, mental health challenges that people have. And it's an opportunity for us who are, we have, I don't know what it's like in anybody else's house, but in our house, we have better days and we have not such great days. Today, I am enjoying this incredibly beautiful Chicago morning. For those who don't live in Chicago, you should know that winter ended yesterday. We had sunshine finally, so I'm coming outside. It's not because, I'm not doing this because there's a child running around in our house without a diaper on, although that may be true, I'm not saying, but it's just great to be outside. So you work with lots of different people here in Chicagoland, and maybe for those of us who have those ups and downs, just maybe reflect with us on maybe some strategies to think about, especially for those who are dealing with anxiety, whether it's the uncertainty of their job or the anxiety of the pandemic. What are strategies that people can do to help manage some of their anxiety?
Sure. First of all, we have to understand that the root issue in anxiety is a sense of helplessness and primarily being out of control. And if there's any situation that embodies being out of control, it's this pandemic now. And the best way I have to describe, when I'm talking to people and they're telling me they're just overwhelmed, they feel utterly helpless in the throes of this pandemic and the constant drumbeat of media, which is always worst case scenarios, what can we do? So if the root issue is a sense of helplessness and being out of control, then the antidote is what can we do to put ourselves back in control? Now, on the macro picture, the big picture, the world, the global picture, we are not in control. We are not in control of this virus. We acknowledge that and we say that. So what is the antidote for feeling out of control? It's to go to the micro picture, the small picture, our immediate daily life. And that's why I think it's crucial. How can we impose some level of control in our immediate household? And that consists of coming up with a daily schedule. It's yom, it's day by day. You have to live in the present and today, and what do I have to do today? So it becomes really critical, I think, for people to sometimes literally draw up schedules for themselves, what they want to accomplish today. I don't care if it's the laundry, I don't care if it's coming up with an Instacart shopping list, but what can I actually do? Because the more passive you are, the more helpless you feel. So you have to impose some level of control. That means coming up with a schedule. It also means getting yourself out of bed this morning. Those who have small children at home really don't have a choice. But if you're just alone or with your spouse, sometimes it's just easier to say, I'm just gonna stay in bed, or I'm going to get out of bed, I'm just going to stay in pajamas all day. Whatever you can do to impose on your immediate life a sense of schedule, predictability, routine, tasks that at the end of the day and in the course of the day, you can check off and say, hey, I did this. So that's one important thing. There are lots of others.
Awesome. What about people who are feeling, let's say, overwhelmed because they have so many tasks, they have so much responsibility, and they're feeling overwhelmed by everything? How to best handle that, maybe?
Well, that goes hand in hand with what I just said a few moments ago. If you can break it down to a step by step, okay, I'm not going to think of the whole day. I'm going to say, what can I do this morning? What do I have to do first? I have to get the kids ready for their, online school. I have to put the laundry in. Just break it down. Don't keep it. The bigger the picture, everybody tends to catastrophize when they're anxious, and the glass. So we have to look at what we can do, what we can accomplish, check that off and be proud of it. It doesn't have to be something mega or grandiose. Right now, I'm trying to say it's the micro, small picture. What can I do? Those who have children, it's important to model for your kids. And so sometimes having kids is really a plus. It's always a plus. But sometimes in this case, it forces you to step up to the plate. I have to take care of myself, and put on the oxygen mask before I put the oxygen mask on my kids. I have to take care of myself. You also have to build into your day an opportunity for self-care. It's so important. It's not just, yes, I have a lot of things to do, but I also need to take a walk around the block. I also, need to talk to my spouse. I need to talk to friends. It's really important to verbalize. If you're feeling overwhelmed, panicky, scared, you've got to give it a name. You've got to say it out loud. You've got to tell your spouse, I need 5 minutes. Let's grab a cup of coffee. I'm really feeling stressed. Call up a friend. The more you can externalize that, the more tangible it becomes. The less you internalize, it tends to become exaggerated, and it builds up inside, and you've got to discharge it somehow. There's no shame in saying you're stressed, you're anxious. You don't have to keep it all within. It's much more destructive that way.
Interesting. So even just stating the obvious then, just verbalizing it.
Absolutely. Verbalization is extremely powerful. I mean, that's really what therapy is about. You're getting people, and I'm encouraging people and facilitating people, talking and giving things a name. When things don't have a name, they become much bigger and more overwhelming. If you can give it a name and say, hey, I'm scared. I'm really anxious right now. I just saw the headline. That's the other thing, by the way. Try not to have 24/7 drumbeat of news. Encapsulate it. You may check in the morning. You may check in the evening, but not all day long, because it just is so destructive.
So it sounds like if you're encouraging people to talk, how has it been working with your patients and your clients? You're able to connect with people on Zoom, video? How does it work in?
Oh, I do whatever works. I do FaceTime. I have a HIPAA approved program. I even do WhatsApp, which is end-to-end encrypted. And for some people, they prefer that way. And right now, these days, the rules are whatever works.
Beautiful.
So, although it's not my favorite, I like the in-person contact. But for me, this becomes essential. And, so I'm doing that every day. And really appreciate being able to connect. Technology is a double-edged sword. We all know that. But in this particular case, Baruch Hashem, we have something like this, so you and I can connect. We can connect with people at large. It's all about social connection, because you're not in this alone. We're all in this together.
Right.
And an anxious patient told me that now she feels a little vindicated, because everyone else can now appreciate, when she has a real anxiety disorder, can really appreciate the fact that this is what you've been going through. So there's, the sort of shared experience is very, very powerful. I can't emphasize enough the necessity of social connection.
That's amazing. And I think that's something that even everybody probably can do that, whether it's sending a text to someone who they know, or someone on their block, or knock on their door on Shabbos and just stand from the street and say good Shabbos, just to make people feel connected.
Oh, 1,000%. So again, the message is not to forget about the macro picture, but to really focus on the micro. And you have a lot more control over your daily life than you would think if you're just looking at headlines. And that's empowering. And that's the key now. How can we feel empowered? How can we feel, I've done a good job with my kids today. I've really done a good job with my spouse today. And give yourself a pat on the back. Exercise. I can't emphasize that enough either. You've got to do something. You've got to get yourself out of bed. There are plenty of things you can do. Even baking bread. What is the baking bread all about?
Yes, it's amazing. Our bread machine broke this past week. The has been breaking all the time with the kids. You can't buy a bread machine on the internet because everyone's baking. It's awesome.
Baruch Hashem, I hear yeast is back in Chicago.
Oh, yes, we had, those who need, there's still yeast around there. But these are really helpful tips. Thank you so much. Best wishes. Stay well. Be good and say hi to Abe. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Bye-bye.
Great to have you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
We are delighted and honored to welcome from his rabbinic man cave in Passaic, New Jersey, a mentor of mine who is gracing us with his time. I know that he's incredibly, incredibly busy at this time. And to welcome Rabbi Yaakov Glasser, who is both the Dean of the Center for the Jewish Future at Yeshiva University and also the Rabbi of the Young Israel Passaic Clifton, and a personal mentor, so much of an instrumental support system, an essential person in the functioning of our kollel. So to welcome you back to Chicago, where it is just beautiful. Let me tell you, it is gorgeous. Rabbi Glasser wears many hats, and we'll try to tap into both of those hats this morning. First of all, how are you? How's Ruth? How's your house managing today? We go one day at a time over here.
Baruch Hashem, since we have a perfect family and a perfect home, everything is going great. No problems,
No screaming.
no issues whatsoever.
Amazing.
I have to say, Rabbi Brand, it is amazing to be in Chicago. And it's amazing to be in Chicago, mostly because I'm not going to be delayed coming home when this is over from your airport, which I love for all of its wonderful qualities, which don't include sending flights back to New York on time.
Well, it's great to have you. So let's maybe start with your first hat. We'll go with the Rabbi of the Young Israel Passaic Clifton hat for the moment. How are you giving people guidance in the shul as to, giving themselves some chizuk during this challenging time from a rabbinic standpoint? That's hat number one we'll go with today.
First of all, I'm just very impressed that to symbolize the hats of Passaic, you have a baseball cap, which clearly shows a little bit of dissonance in terms of our hat culture here. But that's okay. I understand the diversity of the kollel and all of that. So I'm on board 100,000%. I myself am wearing a blue and white mask when I walk around the community, just to bring a little bit of sprach of religious Zionism to the environment. Anyway, first of all, it's great to be with you. It's great to see all the wonderful things that you're doing. Rabbi Brand is one of my tremendous heroes, even though he works in very holy work and I work in very holy work. We first worked together in the Holy of Holies work. And that was, of course, in New Jersey Junior NCSY, but that's for another day. In my shul, in our shul, what are we doing to keep everyone chazik and sane? So I would say a number of different things. Number one, we obviously have ongoing shiurim that we are giving that revolve around things related to what's going on and things not related to what's going on. Number two, every Sunday morning, Ruth and I host coffee with the rabbi and Rebbetzin. We've only spilled the coffee once. And this is a no Dvar Torah zone, where we just talk with people and connect with people. We schmooze with people. We talk about New Yorkers and out of town. We talk about whatever comes up, whatever everyone is struggling with. On Erev Shabbos, every single week, we have a pre-Shabbos Ruach and Kumzitz, a lot for the kids. And that's really where we've had the opportunity to expend a tremendous amount of energy. But I'll share with you something that I plan on actually sharing. We're having a big night of chizuk later tonight in the shul. That's for the whole community. The whole community, Passaic's getting together. And just like in Chicago, this crisis has brought together so many different parts of our community in such a unified way. And it's very, very beautiful to see. So tonight, we're having a few Rabbanim speak divrei chizuk, and I'll share with you what I'm sharing with them just in a very big kids way, because I think it hits on the themes that we're focused on with our chizuk. And that is that this past Shabbos, we read about the Kohen Gadol going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and we know that before he would walk in, he spent 7 days in isolation. Shivas Yamim Kodem Yom HaKippurim, they would put him in the Lishkas Parhedrin. And the Gemara asks a very simple question. This Lishka, this room that he spends 7 days in quarantine before going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, away from his wife, away from his family, away from his friends, away from his shul, away from his community, does this require a mezuzah? And the Gemara says it does. It does because Shemer Yomru Chabush Bebeis Asurim. If we don't have a mezuzah there, then people will think it's like a prison. So I'm thinking to myself, how does a mezuzah transform an environment from looking like a prison to looking like something that represents the authentic sense of ambition and aspiration and spirituality that really permeates the environment within which the Kohen Gadol finds himself in anticipation of Yom HaKippurim? And I was thinking that this is a mitzvah that even though we don't get to go to shul, and we're not going to yeshiva, and we're not going to the beis medrash, you know that those environments are not chayiv in mezuzah. We have mezuzahs there because we eat and we fresh and we sleep and we, during the rabbi's sermons, that's mechayiv in a mezuzah, although on sukkahs I hold it's also to sleep in the rabbi's sermon because you're outside the sukkah, but you're a mitzdayer, so maybe you're butter. It's a whole deal. But the point is that we have mezuzahs in our homes. And I think there are 4 lessons from the mezuzah that relates to chizuk for coronavirus. Number 1 lesson we get from mezuzah is that things need structure. Things need structure. You only put a mezuzah up when there is structure. You don't just randomly post iconic symbols and representations of the Sefer Torah and of our faith throughout your home. They require a certain mashkof, you require a certain sense of structure. And in order to persevere through this environment, it's so important. That's what we've tried to get to each other, to get to our chevra, a schedule, a plan. And even when the plan goes off, to stop and replan. I keep telling the people in my shul, it's okay if for the last 6 or 8 weeks, you didn't have a Dvar Torah at your Shabbos table. That's okay. You can start something new. We just started something new at our Shabbos table. We started Pirkei Avos. You could start something new. It could be that some Shabbosim you daven at 8:30, some Shabbosim you daven at 9, some Shabbosim you daven at 9-ish, right? Some Shabbosim we daven at 9 o'clock, Chicago time, right? They're different, but there's always a structure. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a schedule, there's a structure. That's one thing for a mezuzah. The second thing is faith. Mezuzah is really about the notion that no matter what's happening in our environment, we have a sense of emunah. That's one thing we've been working very hard on, to understand that emunah does not just come from circumstance. Emunah comes from thinking about it, talking about it, allowing it to become more of a conversation, a reality, God, Kadosh Baruch Hu. The third piece that I think is very important is the mezuzah of Kriya Shema starts with Ava and then goes into Shmiras HaMitzvos. So love is a huge part of this. Making sure that there is a sense of connection and a sense of humanity and a sense of positivity and a sense of hope. V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. That's step 1. And making sure that there are many different opportunities throughout the day to express love to the Ribbono Shel Olam, love to the community, love to a spouse, love to our children, not to just allow the cycle and momentum of the day to take on its own emotional tone, to harness the emotionality of the experience and point it in a direction that is positive and that is hopeful, love, Ava. And then, of course, there's expectations, there's schar v'onesh, not to allow this to become a license for anything goes. To allow ourselves to remember and to anchor ourselves that there are expectations of Torah and mitzvos. There are things we do. There are things we don't do. We can have flexibility in a Shas Adchak, but it's flexibility. We don't abandon the anchor of halacha to ground our lives in a certain rhythm of loyalty to a way in which we saturate every action we do with ruchnius and with a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These are the 4 things that I try to think about throughout the day as I pass these mezuzahs and as I kiss these mezuzahs and as I think about these mezuzahs, and to try to put a mezuzah on my own life as we proceed.
Amazing. Thank you for all those mezuzahs. I got to think about them when I get back inside. Now, wearing your Yeshiva University hats, your CJF hats.
Yes.
There's a lot that...
I hope you paid full tuition for that hat, by the way.
By the way, one of our board members sponsored making these hats, which we can get you one. We have to, this needs the new logo. This is the old one. I know that you have been working so much with Rabbanim and communities. And what is it maybe that you want to share with our community or with communities in general that they should know that you guys are up to for the Rabbanim, and that it's important for people to hear from a communal standpoint?
Sure, absolutely. So our division of Yeshiva University, which engages with communities more broadly, but is very focused on the Rabbanim of the community and the Rebbetzins of the community. One of the unique aspects of this situation that is unlike anything else that your Rav and Rebbetzin have ever dealt with is that usually when you come to them with a crisis and with a challenge, they may have had an experience with that crisis or challenge that maybe gives them a certain quality of empathy that they could bring to the situation, or they may have a lot of great training, or they may just be intuitively able to connect to what you're doing. And all of that makes a great Rav and a great Rebbetzin. But it's really rare that you'll approach them with a crisis and they are also in that crisis. And that is the situation that leaders find themselves in now, which is that they are in a disposition where they are expected to give and to guide and to edify and to inspire. And they themselves are at the heart of every aspect of challenge that this is about for their own families, for themselves. They also have relatives that have serious health issues. They also have marriages that are under stress. They also have issues with their children. They also have trying to keep everybody sane. I mean, I know that in our home, the competition that exists for chargers is fierce. And, somehow the mitzvah of kibbud v'aim does not give me any sort of edge over, if I ask for a cup of water, I can get a cup of water. If I ask for a charger, so then it's like, I don't know, it's Shepsosai Tishmoru, Mikdashi Tira, I'm not sure, you may be asking me to violate an Isator. So, we have all the same challenges that everybody else has, and then also have to somehow summon the energy and the positivity and the resources to be able to guide the community forward. And so for that, we have been trying to provide an enormous amount of support. But I want to make one comment about the Rabbanim and the Rebbetzins. And I've been telling this to everybody I get a chance to talk to. And that is that before coronavirus, if you would have asked me, as someone who is part of a team that works with hundreds of rabbis around the community, around the country, around North America, to make a list of the top rabbis, who are the top rabbis? Who are the ones that everybody really gravitates towards? We could make such a list, the people who are out there, the people who are popular, the people who are well known. What we have seen through this experience is that every Rav and every Rebbetzin, even if you've never heard of them, and even if they're not out there in a very public way, has manifested such an unbelievable amount of creativity and connection and hard work and empathy and God. It's just absolutely incredible. It's absolutely amazing. And it's really been inspiring to watch. It's been inspiring to watch so many Rabbanim find their voice in a moment of challenge and really pull ahead and find all sorts of kochos that they never knew they had. And so a lot of what we are doing is we are supporting them in the realm of psak, in the realm of source material, in the realm of guidance for communities, in all sorts of different areas. And it's a great privilege and it's a great opportunity. And Hashem should bless all of us with tremendous strength to be able to move forward.
Amen. Awesome. Beautiful. Any last word, maybe just thinking about ahead for preparing for shoeless, for Sfiras HaOmer, something you talked at the beginning about structure and something that people could do on a daily basis. So there are things that you are doing for your balabatim in the shul, anything you think that people could import into their own lives that you've gotten feedback about that's been like, everybody was like, oh, that was an amazing idea.
Yeah, I think that one thing that is helpful, and Sfiras HaOmer speaks to this tremendously, is because we're living in a time that's inherently less structured. I mean, let's be honest. I'm sure you have this, Rabbi Brand. There are mornings where I wake up in the morning and I feel like it's not really a new day. I feel like that was like a nap in the middle of just a long stretch of. One of the lessons of Sfiras HaOmer is not to view life that way. That each and every day has its own inherent value. Each and every day has its own inherent significance. Whether or not you view Sfiras HaOmer as a mitzvah of each day on its own, whether it's one big mitzvah, doesn't matter. Even if it's one big mitzvah, each component is essential to accomplish, even more essential, to accomplishing that larger mitzvah. So one of the things that I've been stressing with our kehillah is to find the discipline and the space to take on something incremental. It could be small, so that you arrive at moments of accomplishment, at moments of achievement. So I personally started Nachyomi, something I've never done before. And every day, learning a parak, and you know what happened? Even though I'm in the middle of a lot of chaos, and even though I'm in the middle of a lot of challenge, and even though everything's all over the place, I finished Sefer Yoshua. I felt good. I felt good. That's one of the Kisvei Kodesh. It was all about Eretz Yisrael. I felt good, and I'm on to the next one. Maybe it's Mishnayos. Maybe it's something in Gemara. Maybe it's just a Muster Sefer. Maybe it's anything. And I'm sure Rabbi Brand could help you with the resources of the Kollel in accomplishing that. I think that our road to Kabbalas HaTorah is inherently in trying to accomplish some smaller goals that give us a sense that not only are we waiting for the moment where we leave to take all these lessons with us, but even b'shas ma'isa, there's something that's happening. There's something incrementally that's happening. Each day matters. Each day is significant. Each day is important, and it led to something amazing. And that's really what Sfiras HaOmer is about. And the fact that we keep counting, even when we lose it and lose the bracha, only edifies the notion that even when you drop off, you just get right back on. And that's okay too. There are days that I've missed. There are days that I read it or I learned it and I didn't focus on it properly. It's okay. You get back on and you keep going. Holla. Amazing. Oh, Chicago, amazing. We should be zoicha to eat at shallots together. B'meira b'yameinu in Yerushalayim Kodesh.
Amen, amen.
They're going to bring the restaurants also to Eretz Yisrael. I don't know about the ones from Passaic, but definitely the ones from Chicago.
Thank you so much. Always great to see you. Have a good week. Shavua Tov. Thank you. Thank you. Be well. Best regards.
Amen.
Thanks so much for the time. Awesome. Rabbi Glasser, always fantastic. We are delighted to welcome our next guest, Rabbi Moshe Shalom Aleichem, Moshe Bane, coming to us from New York, from the 5 towns. Hope you and your family are well. How are you doing? Let me make sure that you are unmuted. Let's see, where are you there? Okay, are you there? Let's hear.
Baruch Hashem, we're doing fantastic. Thank God.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time. Wonderful to see you. Welcome back to Chicago.
Always great to be here. I have a daughter-in-law from Chicago who's actually spending the period of the virus with us. So we're connected to Chicago on a daily basis.
Okay, that's great. So it's wonderful to see you and taking the opportunity to hear from a lay perspective on what's going on right now. For those who don't know, Rabbi Moshe is the president of the Orthodox Union, and they are so active right now in nationally and internationally providing Torah opportunities and things like that. But really, I wanted to start because we've had conversations and you have a really important perspective from a layperson's standpoint on what are the values of a Torah community and what are the values of our community. And in thinking about that, how is it that this crisis has actually given us the opportunity to showcase and thrive and to bring to the fore some of those important values of our community? I know it's certainly happening in Chicago. I'm curious from your standpoint.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct that there are fundamental values that need to permeate the Orthodox community. And I don't think that this series of events have really changed the values. And all it has done is given us an opportunity to focus on things that very often we're distracted from focusing on. In certain ways, that's a negative. It's a burden that is through pain and suffering, which is really very widespread today. And we have to continually recognize that, but it also is an opportunity to have more time to focus on things. I know that in the spectrum of the Orthodox Union programming, almost everything we're doing in this time period is exactly what we do all the time, but is able to draw much greater participation and attention because people are focused on these kinds of arenas. But when you talk about the values, one of the most important values of Torah Judaism and the Torah community is the non-spiritual per se dimensions, meaning taking care of each other's basic needs, health needs, physical needs, financial needs. And very often, as a religious community, the religious leadership, including the Orthodox Union, becomes so focused on the ritualistic dimensions, the study of Torah, which is obviously so central, the study of halacha, the tefillah of prayer, which is also so fundamental to being an Orthodox Jew, that we forget that the other dimensions of interpersonal care and love and concern are equally fundamental to being an Orthodox Jew. And that has been one of the highlights to us of this period, the degree to which the Bane Odom L'Chavero, worrying about each other, has permeated the community as well on a very consistent basis, not as it is usually done these days, which is a very big concern that we have, which is it's not as being contracted out as we have tended to do with much of our chesed, where we create organizations and we assign to them the responsibility to visit the sick on our behalf, to give out the food to the needy on our behalf. Today, people are much more involved on a personal basis in helping each other. And that's an incredible opportunity that I hope will continue to be our practice even after this pandemic is concluded.
It's amazing. I can sense that even in the small actions where you have those types of expressions of understanding where the other person is and reaching out to them, whether it's even just knocking on a door or offering someone to pick up groceries for them, right? That's something that has flourished in this opportunity. But also going back to the Talmud Torah component, whereby for many people, I know there's someone in our community who mentioned like, yep, my business is in the tank, but now I have much more time to learn. So halavai, their parnasa should go back to full strength. But the notion that the focus on Torah learning and the opportunity that we have as a central feature of our life, I think that's also something that is in sharper focus now than perhaps was before. I know from a Kollel standpoint, the number of people who are engaging in our learning in various ways is just unbelievable, the siyata d'shmaya.
Well, certainly that's the case. One of the concerns, though, that we have, and it's something that we are continually trying to balance, is the Torah study that occurs through technology, which is what the OU tends to focus on as a national organization, and the far more greater important Torah learning that's taking place on a localized level between teacher and student, between Rebbe and Talmud, between rabbi and congregants, that has been to some degree innovative during this period, but has been lost the degree of the dynamic and the social components of a Rebbe-Talmud relationship or a rabbi-congregant relationship that we hope does not get consumed in all of the innovation that's being created on a technological basis during this period and reverts back to the in-person Torah learning, which over time is probably more important to the sustenance of our religious experience.
So sure, I know it's certainly something that we were thinking about here. I actually had this discussion, exactly this component of our conversation last week with Adina Schmidman, because she was talking about it from a women's perspective. And we were talking about the same thing, how on the one hand, we in Chicago are benefiting in a major way from national resources, from international resources, whether it's the OU or the Mizrahi or others. And yet at the same time, it's very important for us to have our own local flavor in our local programs and our local Yom HaAtzmaut and our local Yom HaZikaron and our local Lag BaOmer. And so that balance is one that we are trying to find all the time. You know, even this program that we're doing now, bringing you to Chicago without having you sit on a plane and schlep out and take off time from work and all the other things that you're doing. So this is part of a greater constellation of opportunities which are local. So that's something that I think everybody is finding their way, especially now post-Pesach, that we realize we're in it for a while. I don't know what people are saying in New York, but we have no school for the rest of the year, and there's the question what's going to be with summer camp. So that's something that we're definitely thinking about in terms of a Rebbe Talmud relationship. What are you seeing in the neighborhood that's dynamic and interesting from a learning perspective in your neighborhood?
Well, I really I haven't been outside much to know about my neighborhood. I'm much more familiar with the broader country and the numerous communities that we're engaged with on a day-to-day basis. But I will tell you that the innovation that local shuls and rabbanim and Rebbetzins and mechanchim and educators have brought to the fore during this period has been remarkable. And the degree of effort that has been expressed and the creativity that has been brought to the table in order to keep that connection between congregants and congregation is really, really remarkable. I'm hoping that kind of dynamic will continue going forward. You know, very often we get into a pattern and we live according to a pattern, both as individuals as well as communities. And breaking the pattern is a negative. Obviously, we don't want to be disrupted, but on the other hand, it's an alternative. It's an opportunity to begin to think a little bit differently and review what has been our patterns. And when we get to start again from fresh, when the doors are open wider, and we're able to begin our normal course life once again, there'll be an opportunity to start from scratch and evaluate, okay, what was it before? What have we been doing during this interim period? And how do we start better going forward on an individual basis, but also on a community basis?
Yes, and I wonder if this period, in a certain sense, was a matir. You know, I could speak from a Kollel standpoint. Before this, we had considered doing these types of technology-based programs of webinars and types of things, but it wasn't really of interest for two reasons. Number one, I think the content was so alien to most people it wouldn't be of interest. And number two, the technology, even right now, you know, it's just not reliable. even the current technology that we're utilizing right now is not reliable. But the good news is this crisis is a matir. So if our, God forbid, if our connection right now, if the internet in my house just went down or the power went out, so nobody would freak out. No one would be texting me furiously. I can't believe that this colo program failed, because everyone knows this is like, to be very secure, I have a cord that's going in from my backyard into the router in the kitchen. But it's a shoestring operation. So it's a matir for us to try things and not be afraid to fail. So I think that hopefully that will continue afterwards to say, you know what, we tried it last time, so it didn't work 100%. So I think that possibility, that certainly could still remain. But of course, like you said, it's a challenge for us on a chavrusa level within the kolo, to maintain a chavrusa on Zoom and the svarim and all that. It's definitely challenged in a big way. How is it working, just to switch gears for a second, how does it work from an organizational level? Maybe you can reflect for us for a little bit. How does it work to keep a massive organization like the OU running while everybody is remote, whether it's the different divisions or the lay leadership? How are you managing that?
Well, it's remarkable how committed the staff of the Orthodox Union is and how creative they've been. Almost every one of our programs are being operated, if not fully, but certainly significantly remotely. Like some of the areas of our programming, for example, JLIC, which deals with college students on campuses, which is really built on a personal relationship between the educators on the campuses and the students, have been remarkably active, even on a remote basis. NCSY has created all kinds of interactive programs with their students, and both public school students and yeshiva day school students. And perhaps most significantly, in many regards from a communal perspective, is Yachad, which deals with developmentally disabled students. And the amount of innovation and assurance of that continual relationship has been critical. Frankly, one of our big concerns is over the next few period is that special needs children, teenagers, and young adults, as well as their families, have their needs addressed by the community adequately. Because if you look at the different dimensions of our community, that's an area that is really suffering very specifically for the lack of facilities that they typically are able to take advantage of. And the community has to step up and appreciate that responsibility. There are a lot of different components of the community that typically do not get sufficient attention from the establishment and from the ordinary course congregations, including special needs families, but also including the elderly, which have suddenly become much more on the radar screen of the community, and that has attained a degree of significance to the Orthodox Union. People who are living by themselves, a lot of us are suffering from the psychological trauma of being on our own much more than we're used to. But there are people who live their entire lives alone, every night, every Shabbos, and perhaps we're trying to encourage the community to begin to recognize that and be engaged on that basis. So those are the kinds of things that we as an organization are very, very involved in. More particularly now that everything is set on the current basis through this pandemic period, we're now even more focused on, well, what's going to be the emergence and what is the community going to look like as we come out of this process? What are going to be the benefits that we've gotten, and what are going to be the detriments that we've suffered that are going to have to be attended to by community leadership? I'm sorry, I've lost your audio.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for sharing your perspective. B'mis Chazik, you are a machaya for all of the balabatim out there in the world of what it means to make the avodas haklal, the ikar, and the parnasa. Everybody should be well with their parnasa, the fuel to fire that communal focus and energy. So Kadosh Baruch Hu should bless you with continued kochos, and thank you for all you do to support the Jewish community.
Thank you for everything you're doing for the community. Really appreciate it. Yes,
it's our pleasure. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Be well. Shavua Tov. It's our honor now to welcome our last guest for this morning, as we thank Reb Moshe for joining us. We welcome Marna Rav Moshe Weinberger. Rebbe, are you there? Can you see us yet?
Yeah, I see you. Do you hear me?
I hear you. I don't see you yet.
Okay, let me see. How about now?
It's just coming up. 1 second. I don't see the video. It just says your name right now.
Okay, 1 second. Now?
Yes, I see, Rebbe. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, I see.
Okay, before we start, can you see what's on the screen here, just to come back to where we started?
I was thinking about that a lot last night.
So So even though, Rabbi Baruch Hashem, we have the opportunity to connect on technology, it's not the same as being b'tzavsa in person. So this is a way to feel like we're back, Baruch Hashem, together. Halavai. I'm still hoping that Emir Hashem by Elul, the Rebbe Shalom will quiet down all of these inyanim, and we'll have the opportunity to get back together in person. So thank you for taking the time. It's really a great honor. It's such a special privilege and a treat, mamish, to have Rebbe join us today. I just want to ask first, before we start, how's your mother doing? Is she had good Shabbos?
Hashem, she's a survivor, and she's strong, and that together with some old movies from the 1940s, she's doing okay.
Okay, great. Baruch Hashem. And how's everybody in Midwood? Everybody's okay? Your mishpach, everybody's okay?
Baruch Hashem, the Olam is strong, and we're looking forward to a better future. The way that Moshe was just talking about, that's what we're looking forward to.
Yes, Emir Hashem. I wanted to ask Rebbe if Rebbe could reflect with us for a minute on an issue that I'm struggling with, because it seems like we have to think about, and maybe Rebbe could give us some hadracha from an emotional standpoint on a paradox. Because on the one hand, on a personal level, we have to feel the sorrows of the people that are out there, whether they're very immediate or they're bichlal in the world, with people who are alone, people who have health issues, parnasa. It's a big stress, anxiety, it's a challenge. On the other hand, in many respects, for many people, this is an opportunity for a bracha and a simcha. And they have more time with their families, and they have more time at home, and they can learn more. And certainly from a ruchniya standpoint, it's that same complicated relationship. On the one hand, we're supposed to feel sad that we can't go to shul, and there's no minyan, there's no sefer Torah. On the other hand, I can't speak for anybody else, but my davening now, Baruch Hashem, we have in the basement, we have a shtibel. It's named after my grandfather, Zechron Levracha, Reb Matel. So Anshe Matel we have in the basement. On Shabbos, we put out the tablecloth. I'm never late for davening. I could say karbanos every day. We daven with the children. One of my sons, he comes in, he's Adon Olam Chazan every davening. So it's an amazing bracha. So how do we navigate this conflicting emotional reality?
First of all, I want to tell you how much I love you. That's the first thing I have to tell you.
Thank you, Rebbe.
And I miss the time that we were together in Chicago, Elul, and I look back upon it with tremendous fondness into the community. And I've been on the phone with some of the Chaver from the community over the past few months. So we're all in this together, and hopefully we'll be together soon in Yerushalayim. The chiddush of a Jew, what's extraordinary about a Jew, is described in the Zohar Kodesh, that the same way that Hashem can mysteriously incorporate within his infinite being opposites. Hanoi v'hanetzach l'chai olam. Opposites. Chai v'kayim. Chai means when something being alive. Life is something which is temporary, passes. But by Hashem, it's permanent. Chai v'kayim. Hashem is noiseh hafachim. The wonder of Hashem, the pella. That's what the word pella means. The pella of Hashem is that He's able to encompass opposites. So the Zohar Kodesh says that a Jew is a strange creature. That one side of the Jewish heart is crying, and the other side of the Jewish heart is filled with joy, is filled with happiness. It's a good kasha you're asking, but it's a kasha from the Welt. It's a kasha in the world. That is a kasha on a Jew. It's not a kasha. That I could cry for hours and hours over the horrible news that we've received over these past weeks. People that I know, people that I don't know, and the suffering of loneliness, almanas, and singles, and old people, and to think of that. But then in a second, a Jew is able to travel to that part of himself that's filled with immeasurable excitement and joy. It's the belief that David Melech spoke about when he said, that a Jew has the ability in a split second, not just to turn away from the bad and to see the good, but at the very thing that you're looking at that appears on the surface to be terrible, to be tragic, that somehow in some way that we can't understand, that's what Emunah is about, it's good. It's good. What you're describing, the wonderful davening and the interpersonal tikkun that are taking place, and the chiyas that people are having. There's a guy that told me that it's the first time, like in 50 years, that he ever actually stayed in shul for Aleinu, because where's he gonna, like, it's funny to leave if you didn't finish Aleinu, it's funny to leave. So there are unbelievable tikkunim on such a deep level that's happening for a Jew. That's not a steer, it's not a contradiction to the suffering. It's the mesikus, the sweetness that's a forspice, it's a little bit of a preview of the awakening that's going to take place, even with those who have died, even with those who have left the world. It's a reminder that the Baruch Shalom could do anything. And when you walk away from the kever, from the grave of somebody that you love, and you say Yiskalav Yiskadish, and you throw some grass over your shoulder and you walk away, and you feel like that's it, that's the last time I'm going to see this person. And at that point, you just want to jump in the grave together with him. But then comes the other side of COVID-19, the other side of Corona, and says, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. Now we're finding out how much we believe in Tchias HaMeisim. Pesach is the time we have a Kabbalah statement of Tchias HaMeisim. We believe, Oz Yosha Moshe. There was sadness when we left Egypt. Many Jews were left behind. So how were we able to sing songs by Kriyas Yamsuf? What were we singing about? We left all those Jews behind. So the truth is, like the Belz Rebbe said, Rabbi Arlo, when he left, and he came to Etzisel, and it was Parshas B'Shach, and he said that it's true that the singing is not complete. That's true. Because Oz Yosher, then the song will be with a full heart. So the songs that you and I and all of us are singing about, I love seeing my kids, I love davening this way, I love having this quiet, this Yishuv Adas, I love meeting Hashem for the first time in my life, I love all this stuff. So we're singing a new song, but the song is a shir, it's not yet shira, it's not complete. It's a shira rather, not a shir, it's not yet complete, because we miss the people that are left behind, but they're going to join us, and then it's going to be complete. That's all. It's Kemet Seis Chemeres Hashem, Even and the flows. This is just the beginning.
So maybe, Rebbe, that relates to the whole issue about how we love and we embrace the Rebbeinu Shalom, even though he's a mystery, because people wonder, like, why, the why, the what, it's such a mystery. This whole inyan is a mystery, because who is the Rebbeinu Shalom's accountant? How do we know why he's doing, why he put us in, why he's taking us out? But the ability to navigate the mystery of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and still be connected, maybe that's part of this inyan also, right? Isn't that what we're trying to figure out, how to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even within the mystery?
We're discovering that the place where you find Hashem is in the mystery, not despite the concealment in the mystery. That's Davka, the place where he is in the mystery. In the mystery, there was a famous student of Einstein's. I can't remember his name right now. It's a famous story that they say that he gave a marshal. He was Eddington, Professor Eddington. He was a big Talmud of Einstein. He was giving a lecture in Notre Dame once, and on science and religion. And he said, Eddington said, I'm sure that many of you know it, that Eddington said that a marshal, that they were asking about science and religion. He was a very religious person, and they asked him. He said that there was a person who was standing under a street lamp, and he was looking for something, and somebody passed by, a nice guy, and said, "Can I help you? What are you looking for?" He said, "I lost my car keys, or I lost my keys, whatever, to the house." So he said, "So how you ask a silly question? Oh, did you lose them here?" So he said, "Oh, you lost them here?" So the guy said, "No, I was playing with my kids in my backyard. It's around 5 miles from here, but that's where I lost my keys." So then he asks him, "So why are you looking over here?" So the answer is, because this is the closest street light. So Eddington said, the Rebbeinu Shalom is Davka, you lost him in the darkness. That's where he's to be found. You're trying to find him under a street lamp where everything should be obvious and clear. The Rebbeinu Shalom is achenata kel mistata. The Rebbeinu Shalom is cloaked in darkness. And this last period of time has forced us to take a second look in the dark places that we don't normally, like when you're davening with the tzibur, just on a very simple level. When you're davening with the tzibur, you could be the guy that leaves before Aleinu is done. You could be the guy that sneaks off to the Kiddush club. Why? It's like there's an olam, and God's getting whatever he's supposed to get from this place, and it's not me. It's not me. So it's very convenient to sort of hide when you're with everybody else. But when this came, so I'm sure that there are thousands of Inzer mentioned, of our own Chaver, Orthodox Jews, that are beginning to realize that the Rebbeinu Shalom is not necessarily found most, like in the noise, in the clamor, in all of that, is davka found in the time of darkness and in the quiet and the darkness of my shachris yesterday morning. I've been davening Vasikin this whole time, Baruch Hashem. Vasikin yesterday was 5. It was a mechai. It was well, Talis and Film was it was before 5, and then afterwards Vasikin was 5:54 over here, and it's dark. And Davke, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the one who I was looking for under the street lamp, is Davke found in the darkness.
I wonder that too, because I wonder if people who Davke, those people are now, when they're all alone, those Aleinu opportunities, say, you know what, maybe they're going to come back to shul and they're going to be there now more because they realize that it's Davke in their quiet relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's really where it's all found. So
I'm filled with davening. And my wife and I have been talking about this the whole time. What's going to be the V'ach Ve'chein Yetzer B'Ruchos Gadol? Are we going to be able to leave with the Ruchos Gadol? What are we going to take out of this time? What are we going to take out? Moshe was talking about it just now, I heard. What are we going to take out of it? What are we going to take out of this? So, there's a Noam Melech. I have another 2 minutes. I don't know what the time is. So there's a
Rabbi, I put you last, so this way you can go as long as you need.
Yeah,
I'm outside.
I talk too much. I'm going to try to be.
No, that's perfect. That's why I put Rebbe last. This way we can go from today till, we got plenty of time. Shkia here, Shkia in Chicago is not, don't have mincha till about 7:30.
No, until when?
7:30 is mincha around here, downstairs.
Okay. But I'll be mechasa anyway. There's a Noam Melech and a Kushon Samagid from this parsha that it says Emor Lakahana ben Aaron v'Marta Leim. So why does it say twice? Emor v'Marta. So Rashi says Lahazik G'dayim Malktan. Lahazik G'dayim Malktan means that the older kahanim, the Bar Mitzvah kahanim, have to be mazaris and to warn and to teach the younger kahanim. So there's a famous Torah from the Noam Melech, and the Kushon Samagid builds on that Torah from the Noam Melech. There's a famous Torah that Lahazik G'dayim Malktan means the following. There are times of greatness in life. Gedolim, Shabbos Yontiv, okay, that we're familiar with. But then there are extraordinary times. A chasna for a kid. What we're living in right now, we are living in probably, if not the most historic period of time ever. That the Bari Olam did such a thing that the whole world, it was never such a thing. So we're living now in a time that's hard in many ways, but it's great. It's gedolim, it's godl. There's a godless to this time that we're in. Lahazir, gedolim al-ktana means, Rebbein Shalom, how am I going to take the Zohar? Lahazir means the light of the big time of my life. And how am I going to bring that into the ktanim, into the day-to-day life, everyday life? Lahazir, gedolim al-ktana, how am I going to do that? So the Rebbein Shalom is telling us, and this is what the Rebbe Melech and the Kushon Samagid is saying, is that you have to take this time of godless and you have to make it, there should be a chakika belief, to engrave it with davening, to drive it deep into the heart, this time, that not just go back to the half aleinu with the late shul coming, late leaving, or not going to shul, or a kiddush club and narishkeit and kiddush in the middle of davening and all. And I'm just talking about davening, but there's so many other things of how we're relating to each other. I had yesterday that I was able to, I was sitting. It was a beautiful day here in New York yesterday. I don't know what was over there. It was beautiful yesterday, and a couple of my kids came over with just a few of the eniklach. We kept very everything 100% the way it's kedasa kedin, 100%. I'm very makbid with all of these things, and so we all are over here, except for some shtugoyim. We're all very makbid with this, and I was sitting there and I was relishing the time on this, sitting with my kids and a couple of grandchildren, and talking about dvarim shel mabakach, that my family knows that I'm always living in such lachatz, that even when I have a few minutes on Shabbos, I never do that. Everything is always with a watch. Everything is always with a certain metach, a certain tension. And Daddy is never, Zaidi is never like that person that could just let loose with a laugh and be just relaxed and easy. And I had this like chair and I went back a little bit and they were all looking, whoa. And I heard them from upstairs because I was in my study since I finished davening many hours before, and I was learning. I was able to learn for many hours. I've never had a Shabbos because I usually work hardest on the Shabbos. Every Rav knows that, and I was able to learn. But then I heard Kol Doidi Hinei Zabad. I heard my anikla, I heard my child, and I went normally I would say, all right, I'll go for 5 minutes. I'll leave for 5 minutes. I went down, I sat for an hour and a half, and I was relaxed. So I said to my wife, help me to take this feeling of godless and nefesh, and help me to make it something that it can be achet techparts, that I should engrave it into my heart, remind me of how it was, because this is going to pass any day, Mitzvah Hashem, this time, this craziness, and remind me. Ba Yochai Moshe Tov Yeshavta. You ever think, what does that mean? Ba Yochai Moshe Tov Yeshavta? When he was in the cave, Moshe Tov Yeshavta, that was a good place to live. That was a good time. Moshe Tov Yeshavta. But it says Yom Shanasta, Yom Shabrachta, V'Mosub Shom Kanisa Hoidcha V'Hadarach. Davke, in that time of your life where you were in a cave, where you were isolated, where you were apart, where you were in darkness, where you were in dirt up to your neck, where you were living like that, it was the craziest life, running away from Yom Shabarachta, Yom Shanasta, Yom Shabarachta, running away from people, running away from the whole world. Davka, Sham Kanisa, Hoidcha V'Derech. You and I still have a few minutes left of this whole craziness to be kaina, Sham Kanisa, Hoidcha V'Derech. Moshe Tov Yeshavta. I've been telling my chevra, and whoever listens to anything that I've been saying these last weeks, I've been screaming to everybody, don't fall into that negativity where you have these people that are saying you can't be a Jew unless you violate the Department of Health and you go down someplace in a minion and endangering somebody else's life and making fun of the government. What are you talking about? You're in the cave right now? It says by Rabbi Shimon, Moshe Tov Yeshavta. The Baal Shem Tov says, Sumei Rava, the Baal says, Sumei Rava, say Tov. Don't look at the Ra of this. Try to dig deep and see the Tov of what you're in right now. And then ask Hashem to help you to carry this Tov, that I'm not some sort of a mindless amoeba that's going to go and daven with other people, even though I'm going to get them sick and I'm going to get sick and go home and make other people sick, to the grocery, other people sick, like some mishuggah. I'm a shigana. Don't give me shigana. No, Hashem put me right here now. Moshe Tov Yeshavti. Zemoshav Tov. Zemoshav Tov. Davening, family, learning. Moshe Tov Yeshavti. So am I supposed to stay in the cave? No. Rabbi Shimon went out the second time. Sumi Maraschem, he went out, and what did he do? He went right away to Tveria, Israel Iskin Mills. He went to fix up the city of Tveria to help to remove the shveikas of Tumas Meis by Tveria. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went out, he became Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You and I have to come out from the cave, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Not the same small people that went in. We have to come out bigger people that went in. And how should I become bigger with such a hard time? It's hard. Stop crashing and crying about hard. Is it sad people died? Terrible. People are sick, terrible. Daven for them, davening. But Shumeira, Vasei Tov. The other side of the heart, laughing and happy, the children, the Einiklef. And when we get out of all of this, the hugs are going to be real hugs. The smiles are going to be real smiles. The davening is going to be real davening. I'm going to learn that there's Taka Rabban Shalom in the world. I never thought that he existed in the world. I only knew that he existed in the Sefer. I didn't know that he actually is alive. And now I'm going to be with him in the world. Everything's different. My learning's going to be a shmak. Everything's, if we look at it in such a positive way of lahaze gedolim haktan. That's all. That's our job.
And that's one of the things. Even just this conversation, Rabbi, when you know what it would take to for everybody to come and go, and now on the one hand we're isolated. On the other hand, thanks to the Rebbetzins Shalom giving us technology. Of course, we all know technology is tsaros, but the technology benefits. Rebbe, for those who don't know, Rabbi Weinberger has been around the world and back all the way just from Woodmere, and is in Chicago now, and later will be in London. And this is amazing. We had shiurim and learning opportunities to get together. It's
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's the Zoom. I never heard of the Zoom before this start. It's tiring, but I'm talking to people that I never in my life would have been able to talk to. When we were, my wife and I, even before this whole Maisa, we were in the summer. We were in the mountains, and we went someplace for a tiyul. And my wife and I met a couple of a husband and wife from Monroe. You know what Monroe is over here? So it's Satmar. We met some wonderful Chassidic couple from, right? So we met a Chassidic couple from Monroe. And I'm talking to my wife. The last thing I want to do is be spotted by anybody. This is like my time a little bit away. And I hear with an accent from the other side of the room, Rabbi Weinberger. I go, oh no. I said to my wife, oh no. And this chassid comes over, the whole levush, not like me, I'm a Tziga Kimini, understand? He's original. He comes over and he says, you're Moshe. I said, yeah, Moshe Weinberger. Who are you? He says, his name, where do you live? He lives in Monroe. So I said, so he said to me, I recognize your voice. He listens to the shiur. He listens to YU, to what's it called? YU Torah. He listens to YU
Torah, sure.
YU Torah, he listens. And he said, you think I only listen to you? He says, I listen to Rav Schachter. Not only that, I went up to the country a few years ago. I wanted to give Yashikach in person to Rav Schachter for all the Torah that he's taught me. So I said to my wife afterwards, I said, Rabbi Shalom, here's this Chassidic guy, he could barely talk English, from Monroe. And now he's listening to Rav Schachter. And he's listening to me. Is that, I don't know if that adds or takes away, but he's connecting to something that he normally would not have connected to. Now, a lot of his friends would say, that's the worst thing that ever happened to you. A timmer. But more and more people are beginning to realize that there are bigger timmers in the world than that. And it's allowing us a way to communicate, to see each other and to speak to each other. That's unprecedented. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so it's an amazing bracha. It's an amazing bracha. I don't want to take too much of Rebbe's time, but maybe if you have one verse you want to finish with, or as long as you want to go, something, another word of chizuk for us here out in Chicago, where we recall with such fondness Rebbe's visit. Mir Hashem, we're planning for the next one. That's when it comes out.
Mir Hashem, look, a vart a person forgets. A ma'ase, I'll tell you, it takes a minute. Because a ma'ase, a person remembers. I'll tell you a ma'ase. It could be that everybody knows it because it's a famous ma'ase. When I started telling this, it wasn't so famous, but now already a lot of people have seen it in writing and talk. But anyway, I want to tell it to you. I tell it to every bar mitzvah bacher in the shul. This is the ma'ase. So now we're all holding by the bar mitzvah, all of us. We're going to come into mitzvahs now, so in a different way. So I want to tell the same story that I tell to the bar mitzvah bacher in shul. That back in the 1950s, when it's still possible to go to the Lubavitch Rebbe in Yechidus by yourself, so there was a family that wanted to take their son, whatever, let's say the kid's name is Yankee. They wanted to take Yankee to the Lubavitch Rebbe because he wasn't davening much, he wasn't learning much, and they wanted to go to the Rebbe to get a bracha, something, chizuk. So they took him to the Lubavitch Rebbe. In those years, everybody spoke Yiddish, and the Rebbe's talking to them a little bit in Yiddish, and they gave a bracha. He asked them some questions, they gave a bracha, and fine, they're leaving. As they're walking out, the Rebbe turns to the boy, to Yankee, and he asks him in English, and he says, Yankee, can I ask you something? The boy says, sure, Rebbe, what is it? He says, Yankee, tell me something. Do you like baseball? So the boy is excited, and he says, yeah, I love baseball. So the Rebbe asked him, what's your favorite team? He says, my favorite team is the Brooklyn Dodgers. When they used to play in Brooklyn. So my favorite team is the Brooklyn Dodgers. So the Rebbe said, did you ever see them play? He said, yeah, my father took me 2 weeks ago. We saw a game. So the Rebbe asked him, did you enjoy the game? He said, no, it was terrible. And the Rebbe said, I don't think, he said, you love baseball, you love the Dodgers. So why was it terrible? He said, it was terrible because the Dodgers lost 7-0. So the Rebbe said, how do you know they lost? He said, Rebbe, I was at the game. So the Rebbe asked him, did you see them lose 7-0? So the boy said, actually, we left at the beginning of the 8th inning because it was such a horrible game. And my father said, let's get out of the parking lot before there's too much traffic. Let's try to get out. So the Rebbe said, so you didn't see that they lost. So maybe they didn't lose. So the boy said, the whole world knows they lost. So the Rebbe said, why? Maybe when you wanted to get out of the parking lot because there was traffic, maybe the Dodgers also wanted not to have traffic and they left early. So the boy said, listen, Rebbe, you know how to learn a lot, but I know baseball. There are two kinds of people that come to every game. There are the spectators, the fans, and there are the players. The spectators, they can come when they want, they can leave when they want. You could come by your shtabach, you can leave by your ankle, okay, You could take a little bit of a thing down to the Kiddush Club, right? That's in parentheses. So the kid said, spectators can come, they can go whenever they want. But if you're on the team, even if it's not a good day, even if it's a ground ball or a pop-up, you're on the team, you got to play it out. You're on the team. And you're not a spectator. So the Rebbe gave him a pinch and said, Yankee, there are two kinds of Jews. There are spectators and there are players. The spectators are happy that they're tzaddikim, learning and davening in shul and yeshivas and koilim. They're happy. They're happy that there are people that are on Hatzalah. They're happy there are people on Misaskim. They're happy there are people doing all kinds of mitzvahs and chaver kedishas. They're happy that there are good Jews, the spectators, but they themselves are not the players. Jews who are players know that even if it's not so easy, even if it's not going well, even if it's killing you, you're on the team. You got to play hard. You got to work hard. So what I feel right now is that Hashem is telling us it's the bottom of the ninth. The bases are loaded. There are 2 outs, and our generation right now is up to bat. It's up to bat, and we just gotta be team players. We have to learn to take achrayus, to stop being spectators, to Yiddishkeit, to be on the team. Hashem's work should help us to be good team players. And there should be, each one of us should be hitting grand slams out of the park. Even in Chicago, which I know is very, very weak over there with baseball, it's not like the Yankees or anything. I give you a bracha that it should be strong, and you should be able to have grand slams out of the park, each one of us. You should be socially together in Yerushalayim with the B'la Shem Amitis, maybe Amen, Amen,
Amen, Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Bahava. Thank you. Wonderful to see you, Mitzvah Hashem. See you soon. Mother should be well, Mitzvah Hashem. We think of you, your family. Father Zechron Lebracha, should be Melech Yosher for all of us.
Amen.
Be gesund. Have a good Tvach.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Kol Tov.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Good Tvach, Shavua Tov. Please continue to join us for learning this entire week for the Kolol. And remember, this Tuesday, Mitzvah Hashem, Giving Tuesday. Support the community, support the Mostos, and support the Kolol. Have a great week.